Zepbound losing effectiveness after 4 great years. I'm frankly kind of terrified. People are scared that the medication will stop working. 4 years on the medication, and the question that I have is, what were you building during those 4 years that you were taking a GLP-1 medication? Hi everyone, my name is Mima. I used to be obese. I lost all of the weight through a combination of GLP-1 medication, a whole foods diet, and weightlifting. I am now an endurance cyclist training for Unbound Gravel 100 miles in Emporia, Kansas next month, and I have been off of GLP-1 medication for 6 months now. If you would like realistic structure for fat loss, maintenance, and training for strength and longevity, or training like an athlete on or off of GLP-1 medication, then you're in the right place. So today we are going to wade into the trenches of the GLP-1 subreddits and do a good old-fashioned reaction video. I came across this really interesting post on the Zepbound subreddit a couple of weeks ago. I saved it because I have thoughts, as one does. This post specifically is the cautionary tale that I have been emphatically warning you guys about in many of my videos, and basically like why this channel exists and why really I am so adamant about switching to a primarily whole foods diet, moving your body, especially strength training, and building routines, habits, and structures that will support your weight loss and maintenance journeys. We are going to be talking about the original post first because I really want to break this down. And then after that, I'm going through some of the more interesting comments to me and talk about those. But enough yapping, let's dive into it. The title is Zepbound Losing Effectiveness After 4 Great Years. Hello, I started Zepbound Mounjaro back in 2022 when everything was super new. It was a godsend and I lost 90 pounds over the span of the year. By this time, I was at 15 milligrams, which is the highest dose, and just kept taking it weekly until it started causing some pretty significant GI issues. So I started to space out the shots and slowly weight started creeping back. I eventually went back to my 15 milligram every week regimen, but it's not the same. I now have cravings. I randomly eat. It worked wonderfully for 4 years. So my question is, where do I go from here? Do I need to switch to another drug? Has this happened to anyone else? Any input would be greatly appreciated. So I really do not want to be obnoxious about this, but that post is exactly why I make the videos that I make. And it's really why, again, I am so adamant about doing the work while you're taking GLP-1 medications. One of the questions the original poster poses in their post, God, I said that word so many times, is, do I need a new drug? That is honestly the absolute wrong question to ask, and to be quite frank, tells me everything that I need to know about where this person went wrong on their GLP-1 journey. Let me break this down for you guys in 3 separate parts. First, let's talk about receptor desensitization. So the first thing that's happening here is biological and something that I don't see people talking about on these GLP-1 subreddits. But you know, if you ask me, people who aren't willing to do the work while on GLP-1 medications are in denial about this point that I have. So, you know, oh well, whatever. Anyway, let's continue. GLP-1 medications work by binding to GLP-1 receptors. And these receptors are primarily in the brain, the gut, and the hormones. When those receptors are activated, hunger signals quiet down, you feel full faster, and the food noise in your head decreases. That is the magic that everyone talks about while on these drugs, and the magic that had allowed me to completely overhaul my life while I was on Zepbound for 14 months. But unfortunately, or fortunately, your body is constantly adapting. That is what it is designed to do. And over time, especially after 4 years, like this poster had mentioned, those receptors become less sensitive to the same dose. And at the moment, For Mounjaro specifically, the highest dose that you can get is 15 milligrams. It is honestly the same principle as any long-term medication. The signal gets quieter because the body has adapted to receiving it. The original poster said it themselves. They now have cravings and they randomly eat. That is not the GLP-1 drug failing. It is your body learning to work around the medication. And if you are still on your GLP-1 journey, especially if you have just started the medication, I want you to take this point to heart. This is coming. I am really not trying to scare you. I am helping to prepare you. Because as I have said over and over and over again on this channel, the window where the medication is doing the heavy lifting for you is not permanent, which means that the time to build everything else to support the medication is now. Now, the second thing that happened here, and this is sneaky because it happens gradually, unconsciously, that you don't really notice until the damage is done. Ultra-processed foods. I know, I am starting to sound like a broken record, but it seems like I have to keep saying it over and over and over again so people understand, so it sticks in people's brains. Now, the original post didn't specifically mention ultra-processed food, but the top comment in the thread does. That comment reads, "I've been in maintenance 2 months and currently titrating down. I have found that when ultra-processed foods start sneaking into my diet, they affect my hunger signals and make my stomach growling hungry. It seems the quality of the food I eat affects my satiety much more than my dose. Perhaps track for a bit and ensure foods that trigger your hunger haven't started making an appearance in your diet." Now, this commenter has figured out something that takes most people, honestly, years to see. And honestly, a lot of people on the subreddits just flat out deny or don't even accept about their diets. Here's what ultra-processed food creep looks like in practice. You start your GLP-1 journey eating well. Whole foods, protein, vegetables, the works. The medication is working. You feel great, you start losing weight. And then slowly, the ultra-processed foods start sneaking back in. Some chips here, some crackers there. Take out a few nights a week because, life happens, life gets busy. And you don't notice that immediately because the medication is still suppressing a lot of your hunger. But here is what's happening underneath all of that. Ultra-processed food are specifically engineered to override your hunger and satiety signals. The combination of refined carbs, seed oils, artificial flavors, and hyper-palatable taste profiles literally short-circuit the feedback loop in your brain that tells you you're full. These foods were designed in a lab to make you want more. And that is not an accident. That is the business model of the big food industry. So what happens when ultra-processed foods creep back in while you're on your GLP-1 medication? The food is basically fighting the medication. The GLP-1 is trying to quiet the hunger signal, and that food is turning the volume back up. And over time, and especially as receptor sensitivity declines, the food wins. The original poster is describing cravings coming back, randomly eating, and I would be willing to bet that their food quality has significantly shifted over 4 years without them ever realizing it. Not because they're weak, but because that's exactly what these kinds of foods are designed to do. Now, this third part that I want to dig deep into is kind of the big one. Then this is the one that I think about every single day when I read posts like this. 4 years on the medication, and the question that I have that no one in the thread is really asking is, what were you building during those 4 years that you were taking a GLP-1 medication? Because here's the thing about these kinds of drugs that people in these subreddits, in these kinds of groups are really unwilling to say. The medication creates conditions. They don't create habits. When the food noise is quiet, it's easier to make good choices. When hunger is suppressed, it's easier to eat in smaller portions. When cravings are blunted, it's easier to reach for whole foods. The medication creates this huge window where the right behaviors feel almost effortless. But effortless, that is a trap. Because when something feels effortless, you don't really notice that you're doing it. You don't build the skill, you don't develop the awareness, you don't construct the infrastructure that makes those behaviors stick when conditions change, life becomes harder, more chaotic. And conditions always change. Life does become more chaotic, more challenging at times. And the medication becomes less effective. And then suddenly that window is closing and you realize you never actually built anything around it. This person lost 90 pounds. That is a huge deal. But I want to ask, during those 4 years, were they strength training consistently? Were they building a relationship with whole foods that was not primarily dependent on a suppressed appetite? Were they doing the psychological work to understand why food had that kind of power over them in the first place? Because weight loss and habit building, they're not the same thing. You can lose weight without building a single sustainable habit. The scale can go down, but you can not ever have laid down the foundation. And when the medication starts to fade, which it will, for everyone, that foundation is the only thing standing between you and where you started. This is not a judgment. This is a systems problem. Nobody told this person to use the quiet window to build this kind of infrastructure. Nobody guided them to walk through what that would look like week by week, month by month. And that's where the gap is. And honestly, that's why I decided to create this channel and to make videos like these. With that said, let's go through the comments that stood out to me. I'm starting to notice this as well. If it becomes a big enough issue, my plan is to try to switch to one of the newer drugs that should be on the market by then. That being said, that can't be the long-term plan. The more I lose, the clearer it's become to me that I was suffering from a food addiction, and I can see myself slipping back into those habits as the Zep wears off. My long-term plan is to find a therapist who treats addiction issues and will take food addiction seriously and maybe help me with some tools to combat the psychological part of my obesity. Probably I should have done that from the start, but oh well, live and learn. That right there is the whole lesson. Acknowledging the actual work needed to be done while on the medication, especially the mental work. People forget that there is a mental component to the way we eat and what we eat and how we eat and when we eat. You are doing yourself a huge disservice by treating this drug as a solution instead of a tool. Because if you treat it as a solution, you are not building anything, you're just borrowing time. You're right beyond the limits of the current long-term studies. Hopefully your experience isn't foretelling the same issue for all of us. I hear this fear, I really do, but I want you guys to acknowledge what the fear is attached to. It is attached to the medication. People are scared that the medication will stop working. What I want you to be building instead is a life where that fear doesn't have to be so loud and so all-encompassing. Because if your entire maintenance strategy lives inside the medication, if the medication is the primary load-bearing wall, then yes, I totally understand why the idea of it fading is really, really terrifying. But if you've built muscle, if you've built food habits, if you've done the psychological work, then the medication fading is a transition, not a collapse. That's how it has been for me. 6 months off of the drug and my 65-pound weight loss is holding steady. That's a tough one. Might be worth keeping an eye out for the new ones coming out, like CagriSema later this summer, fall should be approved, or retatrutide next year. CagriSema, for example, uses different mechanism standard GLP-1, but also a new amylin pathway, so it should work well for people at a stall. The good news is a lot more new ones coming out soon. It should be possible to rotate to a new one if you've been stuck for a while. I want to be really fair here. More medications help more people. Point blank. I am completely not against that. Again, I am a huge advocate just for GLP-1 medications alone. But if the answer to my GLP-1 stopped working is always try the next medication, then when does the other work get done? You will run out of medications. And you will be right back into threads like these asking the same question. Rotating drugs is a tactic. It is not your primary weight loss or maintenance strategy. Right there with you, friend. I'm frankly kind of terrified. I might get modded for sharing this, but I've been eking out about 18 milligrams from the 15 milligram vial, and even that is petering out. I mean, this reality isn't completely surprising from what I've read. It's not that the drug isn't working anymore. It's more that our prehistoric self-preservation instincts defending the fat mass are overwhelming the drug's earlier ability to suppress physical hunger. Within 2 days of the first shot, I couldn't eat more than 3 bites of a Chipotle bowl. Hard stop. Now, could easily eat most of a bowl before getting the full signal from my stomach. For me, it's not that I'm returning to the psychological cravings of my 50-year compulsive binge eater mind per se. From what I understand of set point theory, our set point is the highest weight we were ever, right? My Neanderthal body thinks I'm starving with my 203-pound weight loss. It's doing its damnness to get me back to my horrible 483-pound peak 2 years ago. I'm not a doctor scientist, so I could be way off, but this is where I'm at, right there with you. This person isn't entirely wrong. Some of what they're saying is real, but some of it is really the kind of thinking that keeps people stuck. The biology about adaptation, true. Your body does adjust over time, as I've mentioned. Hunger hormones do shift. That's really not up for debate. But set point theory, defending fat mass as an unstoppable biological force, that is a hypothesis. It's not a proven mechanism. And I see these kinds of ideas getting passed around as fact in these subreddits so often. And once someone believes that their body is biologically programmed to drag them back to their highest weight no matter what they do, that belief becomes an excuse.
My body won't let me. My set point is 280 pounds. I'm fighting my own biology and I can't win.
And then they stop fighting. And here's really what bothers me about this framing. The moment that you accept that narrative, you are handing over your agency. You go from someone who is actively building something to someone who is just waiting to see how much their body will allow. You become a passenger in your own health journey. I don't know about you guys, but for me, that is an enormous thing to give up. And you're giving it up based on a theory? Because think about what that framing is actually saying. It's saying that your choices don't matter, your training doesn't matter, what you eat doesn't matter, your sleep, your stress, your habits. None of it matters because your prehistoric body has already decided where you're going to end up. I reject that. I reject that completely, and you should too. Your body is not your enemy. It is incredibly responsive, and it responds to everything, including the work that you put in. Muscle mass changes your metabolic baseline. Whole food nutrition recalibrates your hunger hormones. Consistent movement handles how your body manages energy. These are not motivational talking points. There is actual research behind them. Yes, your body adapts, but it also adapts to the habits that you build just as surely as it adapts to the medication wearing off. The question now is, which adaptation are you investing in? Do not, please, I beg of you, do not hand your biology a verdict that it hasn't earned. And don't let a Reddit comment or Reddit posts like this convince you that you don't have control over your own body, because you do. You have absolute control over your own body. And that control is exactly why I have created a series that walks you through every single phase of the GLP-1 journey. Not just the weight loss part, but also the building part, the habit part, the part that actually makes this stick. And I am calling it, If I Was Your GLP-1 Coach, because I have lived this journey. I lost 65 pounds of Zepbound, came off it successfully, and I've kept the weight off. And I had what most people going through this don't have: an obesity doctor, a dietitian, a full medical team guiding me through every phase of my journey. This series is my attempt to give you what they gave me. So if you don't want to miss that, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, turn on the notification bell, all the YouTube things, please, and I would love to hear your thoughts about this Reddit thread. Drop it in the comment section down below. If you have no energy to type out words, just simply type in the 100 emoji, because we are 100% going through this series, going through and starting our GLP-1 journeys right. In between episodes, you can catch me on Instagram. My handle is right here. It's where you can find a lot more of my day-to-day life, what I eat, my workouts, and just random stuff that pertains to maintaining my weight loss. I will see you guys next week in this first episode of this brand spanking new series on this channel. But till then, happy riding.